My name is Amelia Reed. I'm 33. Competence in my life isn't something I advertise. It's choreography, thermostats set to optimize the bill, the grocery list that's always 3 steps ahead, the deed and utilities in my name. So there are no surprises. My condo breathes with a steady, boring authority I built by being careful. You notice it only when the boat lurches. Tonight the boat lurched. Marcus's 36th birthday at my parents' house smelled like roasted garlic and cheap candles. Friends and cousins clustered in the kitchen, everyone auditioning for their loudest laugh. Lucas Harper, my boyfriend of 4 years, had that easy, practiced grin he uses when he's trying to charm someone into believing he's not hiding anything. He'd come with his friend Rachel, the one he dated for a hot minute before we were together. Rachel had a way of arriving like a confession everyone else had missed. Dinner had been ordinary. Plates in, wine poured, Marcus showing off a new toy from the construction yard. Marcus loves to show off. He told the group about a new truck and the laugh was on cue. Then Rachel, who had been drinking long and loud, leaned across the table and did something I still can't entirely believe she did. She pointed at me. "You're worthless," she slurred, teeth bared enough to make it a smile. I should have married Marcus instead. Silence hit like someone flicking off the lights. Mom's fork clattered. Dad's face tightened. Marcus looked like he might sink into the floor. Lucas's grin hiccuped and then vanished. For a beat, I felt vertigo. Not the dramatic kind that makes people swoon in movies, but the small, mundane kind that comes when the rules of a room rewrite themselves. I could have laughed. I could have pushed back, demanded an apology, kicked over a chair for drama. Instead, I sipped my beer slowly, set it down like I was putting the world on pause, and said one word that made everyone lean in. Probably. That one word was less a brave stand and more a closing of a door. I stood, shrugged into my jacket, left my ring on the kitchen counter where it would get found, and left a note. "You're right. You deserve better. I'm done." I didn't go to a friend's house. I went home, packed 2 suitcases, my laptop, a few cables, and the gaming rig I couldn't bear to leave behind. I found a small furnished studio that night and moved in before dawn. There's a certain clarity to eating ramen in a place where no one knows where you keep the plates. The world contracts and the edges sharpen. What Rachel didn't know, what Lucas didn't, and what Mom and Dad and everyone else would later pretend not to know, is the quiet ledger that had run under our lives for 3 years. 3 years ago, when my student loans started ballooning and panic attacks woke me at 3 a.m., Marcus called. He owns Grant Construction, a hard hat company that smells like diesel and payroll. I didn't want charity. I wanted a plan. Marcus offered a business arrangement. He'd pay my monthly loan bill directly. I'd reimburse him with a monthly transfer that covered principal plus a modest buffer for his trouble. It wasn't a handout. It was bookkeeping with muscle. The payments were about $900 a month. I paid Marcus back as promised, $2,200 a month into his company account, so he could forward the $900 to the lender and keep the relationship neat in his books. I'd saved for a long time to make that arrangement feel less like a secret. My plan was small and stupidly romantic. One day, when the score was settled and the balances were gone, I'd surprise everyone. I'd show Marcus the last statement, and the surprise would be that the worthless daughter, the one who kept the household humming and the budget in order, had quietly freed herself from the debt. All the little dominoes lined up for someone who knew how to set them. Instead, I left the dominoes standing in place. When I slid into the studio that first morning, Marcus texted me, "Bro, what do you want me to do about next month's payment? Stop paying. Send her the bill for what's been paid. She wants a real man. She can handle her real debt." Was Marcus cruel? Maybe. Was he also perfectly practical and, for reasons that were probably his and not mine, a little petty? Definitely. He sent an official-looking email that evening on Grant Construction letterhead. Subject: Termination of Payment Arrangement. Dear Rachel, or rather, Dear Amelia, it stated, per Amelia's request, the monthly repayment schedule and a summary of $87,000 in payments made on her behalf. Attached were receipts. 36 months of transfers, Hugo and Ledger, neat. Professional. Damning. By noon the next day, my phone was a chorus of missed calls. 31 in an hour from Lucas. Texts. Rachel had posted a theatrical version that painted me as a manipulative, quiet predator of men's generosity. Friends chimed in, because that's where modern morality often lives, in group texts and pixels. Financial abuse trended in my tiny corner. The people who had loved my small competence now loved a narrative where I was the villain. Marcus did something he shouldn't have, or should have, depending on whether you believe in theatrics as justice. He commented once on Rachel's public post with the receipts, a line of numbers that refused the sensation and demanded accounting. He attached screenshots, 36 payments, dates, amounts. Conversation that had been built on drunk bravado collapsed under the weight of bank confirmations. Rachel's story unraveled in hours. Mine hung in the balance. She called me screaming. Lucas texted 12 times in a row. Friends picked sides. My mother tried to call, and when she heard both versions, she didn't ask the obvious follow-up question. Why did Marcus stop paying? I let the voicemail sit. My reply was surgical. All legal communication through lawyers. Contact info to follow. There are small cruelties built into adult life. Auto drafts, mortgage due dates, streaming subscriptions, and they can be used like levers. Rachel didn't know the mortgage on my old place, the one I'd shared with Lucas, was being paid from my account via autopay. She didn't know I'd already stopped the small conveniences that made our shared life look seamless. She didn't know the mortgage company would call during her drunken Instagram highlight reel. She didn't know Marcus's next invoice would be as painful as it was practical. But she would find out, and so would everyone else. I sat on the only chair in my studio and watched the city wake. I felt a thing that felt like relief and grief braided together. I'd traded the small, quiet life I built for the clean fracture of truth. Maybe that was worth everything. Maybe not. Either way, I had a plan. It was petty. It was precise. It was mine. The morning after I moved into the studio, the quiet hum of the city seeped through the blinds. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Lucas, Rachel. Texts stacked like dominoes I was tempted to knock over just to watch them fall. But I ignored it all. I had other work to do. Real work, internal work, emotional work, and a small, deliciously quiet plan unfolding. What no one realized, not Rachel, not Lucas, not even my parents, was how long Marcus had been running the hidden ledger. 3 years of payments, neatly packaged into $900 increments that he sent directly to my student lender. Marcus had never told anyone. I had never mentioned it. It was our little conspiracy, born out of desperation and practicality. I had paid him back faithfully, $200 a month into his company account, $1,900 principal plus $300 interest. So the system stayed invisible. Rachel had bragged about my loans as if they were trophies. Little did she know, Marcus had carried me when I couldn't walk financially. That night, Marcus did exactly what I hoped he would. He sent Rachel the termination notice, official looking, typed in crisp grant construction letterhead. Every payment I had ever received was documented. The $87,000 total stared at her like a silent indictment. He even included the repayment schedule going forward, each installment a reminder of her entitlement. Within hours, the internet erupted. Rachel's friends flooded her socials with outrage. Financial abuse is real. You deserve so much better. How could he do this to you? Meanwhile, Marcus posted once, just once, receipts attached, 36 months, every dollar, every date. Silence, then clarity. The narrative shifted in seconds. Rachel was wrong. She had accused me of manipulation, but all evidence pointed to her misunderstanding, or her own misjudgment, of what had been happening behind closed doors. But the invoice wasn't just a document. It was a hammer. A legal, financial hammer that landed squarely on Rachel's real-world life. Her actual monthly obligations were far heavier than she imagined. Mortgage auto payments paused. Credit cards were no longer covered. The first of the month hit her account like a freight train, $2,847 for the loan she thought she was paying $900 on, plus Marcus's separate $2,200 request. The total, $5,047, loomed over her modest $65,000 salary. Her panic was immediate. Calls, emails, texts, mostly unread. By Tuesday morning, she appeared at my studio, pounding on the door. I let it go to voicemail. Lucas texted 100 times. Rachel screamed into my absence, claiming financial sabotage. My neighbor, Frank, 80, Korean war vet, world-weary, gave her a glare that could cut glass. Eventually, the police had to intervene. Wednesday, she tried HR at my company, pretending there was a family emergency. By Thursday, she called my father, sobbing, twisting every word to paint me as cruel. My father, Robert, was quietly furious. He asked for details. When he heard Rachel's claim, he sighed. She didn't mention that Marcus has been paying her loans for 3 years? I told him the truth. Silence, then low whistling. Yeah, she's screwed. Every attempt Rachel made to regain control was met with reality. She tried negotiating with Marcus directly, weeping apologies in his office lobby, claiming family loyalty. His secretary didn't let her pass the door. Emails? Ignored. Legal counsel? No one would take her seriously. Each failed attempt piled more pressure on her, each failure a tiny, unrelenting lesson in consequences. Social media, once a place of empowerment for Rachel, turned into a gallery of humiliation. The posts where she had bragged about my supposed inadequacies crumbled under receipts, bank statements, and Marcus's calm, clinical logic. Friends and acquaintances slowly stepped back, realizing the story they were cheering for wasn't accurate. Meanwhile, I sat in the studio watching my plan unfold like a chessboard, every move precise, every reaction anticipated. I didn't gloat, at least not outwardly. I just observed. Relief settled in my chest like a warm weight. The humiliation I endured had a purpose. It was not vengeance. It was order restored. The first week ended with Rachel's mortgage autopay failing mid-party, a dramatic crescendo that I could only admire from afar. She hadn't accounted for my foresight, my small control over our shared life's levers. The financial reality she'd mocked me for was now tangible, unavoidable. And me? I had ramen, silence, and a studio that only I could disrupt. Marcus's one-line texts were the final punctuation on each day. You're free now. Handle the rest. Some people call this petty. I call it careful strategy. Every late fee, every notification, every failed autopay was not random. It was the domino effect of competence finally visible. And in this silence, I started to feel something I hadn't allowed myself in years. The quiet surge of autonomy. The thrill of finally being seen for what I really controlled. Week 2 arrived like a tide dragging every illusion out to sea. Rachel's barrage of emails and texts intensified, swinging from rage to pleading within the same sentence. Threats to destroy my possessions, ultimatums about legal action, demands for financial restitution. She tried it all. But reality didn't bend. Mortgage notices, loan invoices, and overdrafts were relentless. Every claim she made was met with facts, receipts, and Marcus's concise, unflinching responses. The house, the one we had shared, where she had once waved wine glasses and declared me worthless, became a stage for her own downfall. She attempted to list it for sale without my knowledge. One problem: both our names were on the deed. The agent, politely horrified, reminded her I was still an owner. Her plan crumbled before it left the office. Lawyers got involved. I had anticipated this. Each interaction was filtered through legal channels, every conversation documented, every claim refuted with calm professionalism. Rachel hired counsel, fired counsel, tried again. Nothing changed. The debts remained legitimate. The house would need to be sold. Her autonomy on financial matters, the one she had assumed she controlled, was illusionary. By the end of week 3, reality had fully intruded. Rachel's student loan auto debit hit her account, $2,947. Marcus's separate invoice arrived, including late fees, $2,300. Mortgage notifications stacked at $2,100, and credit card minimums went unpaid, $890. The total monthly obligations, $8,147. Her take-home pay, $3,300. The arithmetic was cruelly precise. She scrambled, begged, and tried to negotiate, but there was nothing to negotiate. Her attempts to salvage appearances, a divorce party, Instagram posts celebrating newfound freedom, dissolved in the cold light of overdue notices and creditor warnings. Friends drifted away once the truth surfaced. The woman who had called me worthless had been living on my brother's quiet generosity for 3 years. Social media, that had been a stage for her empowerment, became a monument to her miscalculations. Meanwhile, Marcus and I maintained a quiet distance. He eventually forgave the $87,000 debt. A formal letter absolved her of repayment, but the lesson remained. The drama, the public spectacle, the financial reckoning, all unfolded, leaving her to process consequences she had long ignored. By the 6th week, the divorce was finalized. Assets split, debts separated. She walked away with $11,000 from the house sale. I received the same. A clean break, though small in material gain, was enormous in clarity. She relocated, took a second job to manage remaining obligations, and began the slow process of rebuilding. I sat in my studio apartment, a small, serene space, where every appliance and every payment was mine to command. The ramen was mine, the electricity, my own, the quiet autonomy I had long sacrificed for appearances and goodwill was finally absolute. Marcus's one-line text summed it up perfectly. Holding on to the debt means staying connected to her drama. I did it for you, not her. And he was right. I was free, really free. Not wealthy, not vindictive, but unburdened. No more walking on eggshells. No more draining my resources to maintain illusions. No more public humiliation. Weeks later, a message from Rachel's former friend Hannah arrived. She had known about the loan payments for 2 years. She had kept silent to watch how far I would go for her. The realization didn't sting. It confirmed what I had long known. The only person who truly needed to recognize my worth was me. I did. I rebuilt slowly. Therapy sessions, a raise at work, quiet evenings in my studio. I started dating again, carefully, cautiously, nothing serious yet. I was learning the value of being fully seen and fully independent. Marcus and I remained close, closer than ever, our shared secret now a quiet bond rather than a weapon. The lesson was clear. Competence, integrity, and patience have their own rewards, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. Ramen in hand, I watched the city lights flicker through the blinds. My life, modest and precise, was mine to manage. And in that quiet control, I found my worth, finally and fully recognized, without apology,